I hope you like squares because RuneScape is really embracing that this week. We've got back to our square roots. Heard of circles in Minecraft? Ugh, disgusting. We're all about squares. First though, let's see what the developers have been commenting this past week on updates from the community's questions. Mod Anvil says that the Reaper Boss Slayer system is still being looked into and discussed internally, but no new updates on the progress yet. Mod Ryan talks a little bit about the phenomenon where have you ever been using melee in game and you try to attack something that's moving and it just keeps walking away from you and you keep waddling behind it trying to slice it, but it just keeps dodging your sword? Well, this is a problem that's arisen after the combat modernization update that happened earlier this year. They say they've been working on a fix for it and it's currently in QA, quality assurance, so once it passes all the bug checks, it will be added into the game as a fix. So that's coming soon. Are you tired of the in-game clock being in the way of your minimap? Well, Mod Ryan also says they're currently looking to give you options for displaying the clock, whether you want it toggled off within the minimap or free to move it around. Wanting to move or hide the clock has been popular, so I'm glad that they're looking into that. And finally, Modizena was talking a little bit about how overwhelming it can be for returning players to find what they want to do when they log in. Saying a little bit about the thieving update that happened recently is a good thing to jump into, saying that they've personally been doing combat mastery achievements lately, and I think the lobby would be a perfect place for something like that. If you had it up here in the featured area, for example, you could have Haven Height on one side and then maybe the 110 Hunter update on the other side, and that gives people like, oh, maybe I should do some hunting. Having a system like that in-game would also be nice, maybe something that could replace the daily challenge system, having like a daily recommendation system instead where it looks at your skills maybe and be like, oh, this skill is kind of low, would you like to train some fishing today? Something like that would be useful, I think, for people returning and give people a little bit more focus, you know, help them out. Once you manage to set yourself some goals in game, it is a lot easier to just log in and play a little bit because you're progressing towards something that you want to do. Let's find out what they mean with all these squares that they've been talking about. This is part of the Road to Restoration set of updates. When you click something in game, there would generally be a circle around it. Be that if you're just walking somewhere, if you're trying to cut a tree, for example, or if you're fighting a monster, it will give you a circle around it. Well, they've changed the circle to a square now to better fit RuneScape's grid tile system. I think this is a great change personally because, I mean, I'm just used to tiles and old school, so my walk indicator is a square and old school. So it's very faint and it's grayed out, so I don't really notice it as much as the RuneScape 3 one, but will say I tried it out in game. I like the little animation it has. It feels like it fits more in my opinion, but it's fair if you like the circle. Maybe you'd like to have the circle back in like a toggle in the settings. Not gonna say one is better than the other. This isn't the only thing that has been changed this week though. You might have noticed over the last few years, they've been leaning more into the squares. Be that during bossing encounters where you now see a lot of squares to indicate dangerous tiles, or for bossing arenas themselves where the arena itself is a square. They've sort of been embracing squares for a little while now, and so they wanted to give the players a square too. So when you click something, as you can see here, there's a red square around something you're attacking, there's a yellow square around you moving around, and then they didn't show it here, but in-game if you click on, for example, a tree, like I said, you'll get a blue square. Now, if you don't like all these squares, you're not really into Minecraft, you can go into Escape, Settings, and with the Settings menu open, go into Gameplay, and then Interfaces, Game Interactions, and then 3 down from the top, you'll see walk markers here that you can toggle off, walk around without those little squares popping up. With them on, it looks like this. You'll see these squares for where your character is planning to walk to. You can also turn off the red square around monsters when you're attacking them if you're not a fan by going into Settings as well. And with this, go into Gameplay. For this one, you want to go into Combat and Action bars, and then go down to Targeting, and then 2 down from the top, you'll see Target Reticles? I don't know. You can turn that off, and once you've ticked that off, no more red boxes around whatever you're fighting. Here you can see an example of someone fighting Ivar with the square on. Very useful for seeing how big creatures are. As you can see here, Ivar is 3x3 squares. And additionally, for Yakamaru this week, one of the raid bosses, they've changed one of the indicators for its poison attack to now use a slightly green square, similar to the Vermix boss in Sanctum of Rebirth, where it's indicating with arrows that you should stand on this spot. A little while back, I also showed you some decluttering projects they were doing for particles, and those have been added to the game this week. Here you've got a side-by-side comparison of the two, so this is what it looked like before. Jeez, man, look at all those particles. And this is what it looks like now. exactly the same thing. It's just you can see what's happening now. These are for some ancient magic spellbook buffs. Aurora spells, I believe they're called. They sort of linger around you, but they would spit out massive particles if you extended their time limit before. We've got the same thing with Aftershock here. On the left side, we've got the old one. On the right side, you see the new one. It's very short now. There was a massive amount of particles on the previous one, as you can see on the left. Now there's just a zap of lightning. This is for the Insight Fear spell. Before, there was massive amounts of ice particles and shards going on. Updated look now has a little gust of ice frostiness going on the floor. I feel like they could have uploaded slightly better GIFs of these effects, but you know, it is what it is. When description of when activates, you see this massive particle beam before. Now it looks like this. Ice pulse down and then it freezes the floor around your target. I think the new animations look really clean. They've also been looking into toning down a lot of the auras that float around your character. They said they did make some changes, but after going through internal feedback, they weren't quite happy with where it landed yet, so they're not done with those yet. They're still looking into those. The one they've specifically called out here is the Tumikin and Devourer auras. I guess they tried toning them down, but then they didn't feel like people would see them anymore, so it's a weird balance of getting that right, I suppose. As for other quality of life changes that they've added this week, Necromancy Conjures can no longer be right-clicked, meaning that you can no longer accidentally dive into them, or rather, you can now actually consistently dive under them. Before, you might get stuck in like not being able to attack that target and stuff like that. It just wouldn't go off if you tried. Additionally, the conjures now have a lower visibility ID in-game, and so if a creature is on top of a conjure on the same tile, it will now show the creature rather than the conjure. It'll make it easier for you to find your targets rather than the conjures feeling like they're hiding the things you're trying to find. They also reduced the smoke particles on the conjured zombie. The soul stack orbs that float above your character are now only visible to you. You won't be able to see other people's 5 or 3 orbs above their character's head when using necromancy. The circles will also now be hidden if you're not wielding a lantern. This is to help cut down UI elements in combat. HP and prayer boosted buffs have been removed from the buff bar, so there was always a little boosted health icon there if you had any sort of health boost. That's been removed now, or I guess hidden. Now you'll have to look at your max HP to see if you have the boosted effects or not. Though they have kept the negative version of those effects for cases where, like Zuck, where it reduces your total health. The minions during the Angel of Death Nex encounter will now have little icons underneath Nex's health bar, indicating what order you killed them in, so that should be useful information for those doing that. In line with the other visual effects reductions that they've done this week, the Boonafap Mechin that you can give other players by emoting near them after completing the Desert Finale quest has had its visual effects reduced, so that massive beam of light that you might have seen sometimes is now a very quick gust of light instead. They've also reduced the trail left behind by Dive and Escape and Surge cosmetics. Right, so if we try that again. Yeah, so you can barely see it now, effectively. The blood one anyway. I think the ice one, that one's really good now, I think. Yeah, I think ice is perfect that way. I'd say the warped one is good too. The blood one is a little bit fast. And then the soul one. The soul one's alright too. Before they were about twice as long and they lasted about 3 times longer, so you were just seeing a whole trail of them going. They're quite subtle now. I'd say that the blood soul one is a little bit difficult to see, but other than that, I mean, they seem good. You can let me know what you think as well. They've also improved the visual clarity around the Lumberjack Intuition effect when cutting Eternal Magic trees. Effectively, it's a glow around the tree you're cutting at Eternal Magic trees. If you step into it, you get a woodcutting buff for like 30 seconds. They've made it easier to see this area where you want to stand inside of. They've also added some fixes to the darkness and temporal anomaly spells, where they were ending too soon when extending them via single cast. I'm unsure if they still clear on death, but they have said that they want to change this, because as it stands right now, Vampirism and Penance both stay when you die. I believe Darkness and Temporal Anomaly clear, so you have to recast them upon death. I believe they want to change them so all of them stay on death. They haven't mentioned that change here, so it might not be in game yet. They fixed an achievement called Expensive Range related to mining crystal flecked sandstone, and there was a bug, I guess, where you could still get spring tokens even after the Easter event closed. Following on from last week's change to rune pouches, quivers, and nexuses, the price to reclaim them on death no longer scales with the content inside of them. Great change, honestly. I saw some crazy death fees. So the death cost of rune pouches and all those ammo holders are now consistent. You're only paying to reclaim the object itself, not all the stuff inside of it. They've also added some improvements to Quiet World smart hopping. It will also now say if it wasn't able to find a quiet world, and it will also not try to suggest worlds with different languages. I guess there's still some quirks they need to iron out with this one, but eventually they'll get there. They've also updated the assault animation when using dual wield weapons. Totems should now display their status in the totem bag, and they removed some mentions of auras from random chat dialogues. So those are the updates for this week. We've also got a reminder that Double XP week starts this Friday, where for the next 10 days upon start, you will be getting 48 hours of Double XP. You can pause this Double XP if you want to. I went over the Double XP stuff in the previous video about the new faces being added to RuneScape, so go check that out if you want more details on it. But the gist of it is that it works the same way as before if you've done double XP weeks. They have removed the daily login rewards, and this is the last time you'll be able to gain and use double XP tokens. The double XP token store is closing after this double XP week, so make sure you use them. RuneFest tickets are also going on sale in a couple days on April 30th, so if you want to go to RuneFest, make sure you check that out. The marketplace has had some updates this week as well, with a bunch of older outfits being added. You can head in there and see if there's anything you want to pick up. Also important to note that the Solomon's loyalty points to our cosmetics have been added for free into the marketplace. If you head inside of store and go into bundles, you'll now see there's a loyalty point bundle for free listing 153 cosmetic items inside of it, ranging from outfits to titles to pets, a whole bunch of stuff. And this bundle will be in the marketplace for free until the new avatar rework goes into the live game. Once the avatar refresh reaches the main game, they will remove this bundle, so make sure you pick it up. I believe you have to be a member to claim the loyalty bundle though. Featured art this week is Art Willy, and they're a masked PVMing group. Looking very good, guys. As well as Ninth Cloud's beautiful depiction of Haven Heights shore. Beautiful region, beautiful artwork. So what does the community think of these changes? We've got a 95% upvote this week, which is great. First comment: with 94 points, can we get back the permanent skyboxes? Are you telling me the skybox doesn't stay when you're moving around the game? I don't use custom skyboxes enough, but surely that's how they're supposed to work. Are skyboxes changing randomly when you move around now? Haven Height is really bad at forcing skyboxes. It's like they forgot they have skybox feature when developing Haven Height. Every time I world hopped, the skybox got reset. Okay, so there's some bugs with the skybox system apparently at the moment, it seems like. There are certain places that do override your skybox. I know, like City of does it, for example. I think the Shoreline by Mauritania also does it, where the divination stuff is happening. There's a handful of places that do it, but maybe there's more places that do it now. The skybox you select from the menu should always take priority, in my opinion. The loyalty point bundle is a nice compensation for people who weren't able to spend their points, like myself. Thank you for that. Yeah, a lot of people were upset that they weren't able to spend their loyalty points, and now you can claim everything that was available for loyalty points in the store, so that's a really nice change. I'm happy that they got it released so quickly as well. And it's a very hassle-free way of claiming it. You just go into the marketplace, click claim, and it adds all the 153 cosmetics to your account. With the loyalty store, you had to go in, you had to scroll through 30, 40 pages, sift through the things that actually cost loyalty points rather than rune coins. Everything was just a mess in there. There was no way to sort things properly. Far easier to just go into the marketplace and claim that bundle. Please give us true tiles next. That probably won't happen until the API update later in this year. I mean, old school doesn't even have true tile systems outside of their plugins, so true tile isn't something that old school devs have given. It's something that players have made themselves. If you're unfamiliar with true tiles, basically it shows where your character actually is in game, because your character has a tendency of not always showing the exact position it is. Like, the server will think your character is one spot when it actually is in a different spot, and that's why sometimes you'll take damage even though it didn't look like you were supposed to take damage, because there's a desync between the server and your client. True tile essentially shows where your character actually is. It's part of the RuneScape jank, I guess you could say. The tile click squares look so much better, but not everyone likes it. It feels visually cluttering and really breaks immersion for me. I'm not sure how it is immersion breaking compared to the circles that were there before, but I mean, you could could always turn them off. There is options to turn off the squares. So there is a bug with the new square selections though. I believe it was with the circles as well, but the outline square for scenery objects scales up its thickness for entities larger than 1 by 1. I don't have to go far to find that. If I click on this oak tree, for example, you'll see that it's a lot thicker than if I click on something that's only 1 tile. As from Deepest Fathom says, the circle also did this, so it's not a new bug, but it should maybe be looked at. With an absolute W patch note week. Love the squares. Square walk indicator was not something I knew I wanted, but this looks fantastic. Great week. Dear Jagex, when can we expect drop rates for Flesh Hatcher? Mod Anvil's here saying, dear player interested in drop rates. Mod Pigeon says that they're looking to release drop rates as part of the Combat Mastery achievements being added to Flesh Hatcher Mahuz the Badad. So once those eventually come into the game, I suppose we'll get the drop rate. Tile clicks are so clean, this update is a W. Wiz says they went a little bit too far with the surge and dive overrides, can barely see them now. If you have cape particles like Master Trim, it just vanishes underneath those. Yeah, I noticed that with the Catalyst aura, I could barely see the surge particles with that on. There's currently a bug where Entangle doesn't work properly during the Zamorak encounter. Modazena says it's being investigated. I am squarely in favor of the click indicator update. Not everyone is a fan of the squares, which I mean is fair. I mean, you don't have to have them on, so that's always a positive at least. I suppose it's a little bit upsetting for people who like the circles. They're gone now. I don't believe there is a way to get the circles back. My personal opinion is that the squares fit more because the game is built on squares. Everything's a tile, right? Even though they've done a really good job at hiding the tiles as much as possible in RuneScape, it's very visible to see the tiles in old school, which makes it a lot easier to move around, especially during bossing encounters. Though they have done a fantastic job in places like Nakatra and the Sanctum of Rebirth, where they've actively decorated the floor in squares, so it's easier to see where you're standing in comparison to boss attacks. There have been some comments I've been seeing where people are saying this is just turning RuneScape 3 into old school, but I mean, it seems like a little bit silly, right? Because both games are built on tile systems. It's just that RuneScape has been trying to hide its tiles for like the past 15 years, whereas old school has embraced the tiles. Both games operate on tile systems, so saying that the square is more old school than RuneScape 3's, it seems a little bit silly to me, especially with how some boss mechanics really make you have to stand on specific tiles. It's just that the game doesn't present those attacks really well. I'm gonna throw out Karapak's lightning attacks as an example here. It's really difficult sometimes to see where those actually land and where you're safe and where you're not. I feel like the tiles that are dangerous should have more visual clarity so that you know you're not standing in a bad spot. I don't want it to show me a circle of danger and then I'm maybe on a tile that doesn't look dangerous but I'm still taking damage. That doesn't feel good to me. Really hope to see the square projectile warnings backported to more bosses. Things like the flame wall at Zuck are especially annoying for this. Yep. Anything where particles are the danger seem to have a hard time visual identifying what tile they are on. That's right, it goes in the square hole. Yeah, I remember that meme. That's great. Perfect for this week, yes.
This is a square. Can you guess which spot that goes in?
The square.
That's right, it goes in the square hole.
Yes!
And how about this rectangle? That one?
Also
Square.
Square.
It goes in.
Yes, it goes in the square!
And up next, a cylinder.
Square!
I think that goes in
The circle.
The square!
square hole.
Yeah!
Now, we've also got this semicircle right here.
That should go in the square too.
See a slot that would fit
The semicircle.
semicircle?
The semicircle.
That's right, it's the
Square.
square hole.
It's the square hole. I'm devastated that light form and dark form didn't make the cut, but everything else is huge. Mod Pigeon says light form and dark form are something they have in the backlog. They haven't forgotten about it. It just didn't make the cut for today. I suppose it's similar to the Tumikin and Devourer Aura. They just weren't able to fix it for today's release. Much appreciation for the Solomon Store bundle. Lumberjack's intuition being more visible is excellent. An entire week of gas updates, very nice. Please reconsider the update to Surge and Dive overrides. Feedback has been passed on, Mod Pigeon has seen it. Like I said, on their own they look fine now, but I think if you have other effects like particle trails from your cape or a body aura, it might be difficult to see some of them. But then how visual do they need to be as well? That's the question, right? Some people might like seeing more of them, some people like seeing less. I would really like a grid overlay showing the squares on the world with adjustable transparency. That's an interesting suggestion. Headless One says that they often play on minimum graphics just to see the tiles more clearly. Grid lines or time highlights on a few squares around the tile your mouse is hovering over would be really nice. I believe there are ways to do this in old school, but I think it's all plugin related. So if Jagex don't add this, then there is a possibility that the API update later in the year would be able to add something like this. Any news on South American servers like old school got? I don't think there's been an announcement of that happening for RuneScape 3. Having the tree markers look like this would be better in my opinion, rather than those massive ones that I showed you. This is what it is currently. This is what it could be, you know? I feel like the small one is more accurate. Though in saying that, you might not see the small one with this one since the foliage is so big, but it seems like if they wanted to change how the markers currently look, they would have to do engine work because that's just how they've implemented it. The World Gate box looks really weird. It does. It does look really weird. That seems like a bug. You probably should report that one. Have you bumped into any weird squares in game? Do let me know. Can we get rid of the horrendous new teleport sound? What? There's a new teleport sound? Let me try some teleports. That sounds like the same as before. Or did they change the one when you're landing a little bit, maybe? Fighting Gregorovic is a nightmare. All his shadows have squares. Whoa! That's a huge square. Look at this big square. Okay, there is quite a lot of squares, but I mean, I see what they mean, but oh my god, that square is huge too. I think the thickness of the squares is what I'm reacting the most to though. Sunshine should be updated to be a square. Square shine, oh yes. And cube the sun as well while you're at it. Everything needs to be a square now. You know what? I don't hate it. New and improved squares now with borders larger than you. Yeah, it was a little bit intense on the square going on there. I think we need some tweaks to how thick these squares are, man. Someone redid the female face preview. It looks really good. I like that change a lot. But yeah, I choose right. Out of these two, I choose the right one. Any news on the dyed sanctum weapons? Mod Anvil says, would next Tuesday suit you for a release of this project? I think that's a confirmation. It's coming out next Tuesday. And that's a wrap. What did you think of this week's Square update? Do let me know in the comments. Drop the video a like if you enjoyed, and I'll see you later.